各位贵宾，接下来进行专题演讲。主讲人 Jose Murilo 是巴西数位文化运动的推手与见证者，协助过历任文化部长推动智慧财产权法案的修正，鼓励数位文化创新，并与社群合作创造巴西各大城市的数位文化运动与风潮。Jose Murilo 这次带来的演讲题目为 Digital Culture and Public Policy: The Brazilian Experience。欢迎主讲人 Jose Murilo 上台，让我们掌声欢迎。
Thank you so much. It's for me an honor to be here in Taiwan and have the opportunity to talk about the Brazilian digital culture. I've got to ask all the people that worked on this event. It's a great event. The president of the university, my good friend Ilya, and all the friends here in Taiwan that received me with such kindness. I was talking to my friends here that I wish I had come here with knowing that I had to brought my business cards, because when we met people here, you exchange business cards in such a kind way. And when I get back to my hotel room and I look at the business cards that I have, each one so beautiful and so unique, we from the digital culture crowd, sometimes we don't take seriously some traditions that are important, that are not digital. So next time I come to Taiwan, I'll bring my business cards with. And, well, I'll try to bring some elements from our experience in Brazil that I think will be useful for this exchange that we are starting, that we are making another step in the conversation between Taiwan and Brazil in digital culture. I hope that this event will create new opportunities for this exchange that I think it's very useful for both cultures. Well, when I come to talk about digital culture in Brazil, I have to express how important it is to talk about openness, which is in Portuguese is abertura. I was discussing with my Global Voices friends that are translating this speech. Hello, guys. That in Portuguese, the word that says openness, which is abertura, is not a literal translation. We had a problem. We don't have a word in Portuguese to express openness, because abertura is just an openness and not openness in general. And openness, which is a term in English that is being used a lot to represent what the internet represents for culture. The translation that I like, the meaning that I like, is that it's the quality of being open. It's like all the time, in every situation, checking how we could be open, you know. This was somehow introduced to us at the Ministry of Culture in a term of a minister that was very important to shape cultural public policies in a way, in a very contemporaneous way, and in a way that is very connected with the digital elements of culture. This term that happened in the last decade at the Ministry of Culture in Brazil managed to work the concept of culture. You know, I've been traveling some countries, and I've learned that culture in each country has a different meaning. And it was important for us to check that culture is not like high culture with the C, the capital C, but culture as in general, you know, like everything is culture. And when the ministry, it started to think about the concept that would orient our policies, we had to think of culture in like 3 dimensions. These 3 dimensions of the concept of culture is nowadays, and it's been through the last 10 years, like a mantra in our ministry. Every project that we work on somehow must connect with 1, 2, or 3 of these dimensions. Better than if the 3 dimensions are being represented in a project. But at least one of them must be represented. So you have here the symbolic dimension reflected in the values, beliefs, and practices that shape human expression. The civic dimension, which requires that cultural rights are included in the scope of human rights and, as such, should be considered a foundation for the design of cultural policies. And I got to say that cultural rights is somehow a new concept that I think that digital culture empowers a lot. It's a good thing it's a good moment to think about cultural rights. And the economic dimension, of course, comprehending that culture is a strategic and dynamic element in the economy of a country, generating jobs and wealth in an environment that increasingly values information, creativity, and knowledge. So the synthesis of these 3 concepts, 3 dimensions in the concept of culture, is like the synthesis to promote the cultural rights of citizens, give support to and defend the freedom of artists, while maintaining full support for the economy and institutions of culture and the arts. It's a good synthesis. When the ministry started to deal with these dimensions, one thing that Giberto Gil, the minister, I'll talk about him later, but I got to mention him now. He was very important in working for the ratification of the signing of the Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions from UNESCO. We are celebrating 10 years of the convention in September, and it's a very important moment, I think, because when you talk about digital culture and openness, somehow we have to think how to promote cultural diversity, because somehow there are many risks in the digital environment that our cultural diversity could be like don't have the best environment to circulate. So I'd like to call the attention for this moment. 2003, the minister created the Secretariat for Cultural Identity and Diversity at the Ministry of Culture. In 2005, the Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions were signed. Brazilian Senate approved the UNESCO Convention on the Diversity in 2006. And in 2010, we started working some funds that were created by the convention in order to promote cultural diversity in Brazil. And then, oh, I'm getting lost here. Oh, this is something about the convention, okay? And then, Giberto Gil, our minister. Unusual minister, huh? He used to call himself the hacker minister. He is a Grammy Award musician, very, very, very famous in Brazil and worldwide. And he was our minister from 2003 to 2008. This picture is from a concert, which is a very famous concert from the last decade, 10 years ago, which was the first concert that reunited the musicians that were working with Creative Commons licenses on their work. That was the time that he, Giberto Gil, as a minister, brought the Creative Commons to Brazil. And I heard that it was about the time also that Taiwan started working with Creative Commons licenses. That's another connection of our digital culture experience. It's very interesting. This is the announce of the concert. It was David Byrne and Giberto Gil, and it was very interesting. You can find the show in YouTube. Well, the main program of Gil's digital culture in the Ministry of Culture was, of course, the Cultural Hotspots. I don't know if you already heard about this, but it was a program that was kind of different kind of public policy, because somehow when you think about public policy, we always think about making to think about the policy and implement the policy without taking notice of what is working, of what is happening in the local place. And this Cultural Hotspots program, I think that the interesting thing about it is that it was like finding the places where people were already doing their culture. Could it be dance, video, music, and everybody that was like doing any group that was doing any activity, cultural activity, could present its proposal in order to receive some support from the government, especially the equipment to digitize what they were doing in their culture. But there were three aspects that I think that's very important. It's like the promotion of the use of free software in these spaces, and also the use of alternative intellectual property license. As I told you, the use of Creative Commons, not just Creative Commons, but also copyleft and other alternative licensing models. And also the idea that these groups should assimilate the technology in a way that they could generate other uses that were not previewed, that were not expected by the program. The idea was that they would use that technology to create new possibilities in terms of digital culture. Okay. Well, the vision was to enable these groups to digitize their creativity and publish it online under alternative licenses. And there, again, the three things: free software, expanded options for copyrights, and the awareness that technological literacy in the general populace is the social dynamic that promotes cultural creativity in the digital age. Those are some examples of the cultural hotspots. For example, a group that would work the circus art, and also another cultural hotspot doing music in the northeast of Brazil, and also this orchestra of metal drums from Campinas, which is very interesting also. Many different, Brazil is a very diverse country, and all over the country, many different expressions came to the program. Well, but the ministry was not just using the technology to the programs that youth was promoting. It was important for the ministry also to promote the use of digital culture inside as an institutional tool to innovate its processes and management. So digital culture as a culture of use is the institutional embrace and integration of many digital possibilities for interacting with users. So the ministry started using blogs and social networks and digital interaction. This was happening in 2004, 2005. For example, this is a consultation on a new law. It's not a good picture, I know. It happened in 2008. It was a blog which was used to make the consultation about the new proposal for the new cultural law. You can see that it's long, very many comments. And what is important also is that we started to develop some of these tools for interactivity and open dialogue. For example, the idea of using WordPress as a CMS, where a content management system. You know, WordPress is a blog platform, but it's a very open and very easy to use platform that is very close to non-technical users that can make very interesting things just knowing to tweak the code a little bit. We'd like to say that WordPress is like the very best tool to illustrate the power of digital culture, which is to bring together a powerful technology to the person that somehow creates content and creates culture. There must be no intermediaries of the artist, the creator of the content, and the technology that he's using. That's what we see. So this approximation of the two with the artist is very important. That's what we were doing with this. And the chatcast for interactive streaming of events also, it was a very nice experience because at this moment we were seeing events as processes. The events that the ministry were promoting were like, it started before and continued afterwards with these processes. And also the Chemelé community at Public Software Portal. Chemelé is like tweaking the XML acronym. We're talking about XML, which is a protocol of distributing content online. But the minister didn't like the dryness of XML. Let's talk about Chemelé. Let's give some rhythm to the code, you know. This is also our experience of digital culture, the Brazilian digital culture. Chemelé community became a very famous community because we were opening everything that we developed at the ministry to be used by any user that would like to make the experience. So it was very interesting for us. And also the idea of affirming the founding principle of the free software world, release early, release often, in terms not just of code, but in terms of public policy also. For example, you think about, you have an idea of a public policy, so publish it. So it can be viewed by the people that are interested in this policy, and they can give some feedback that would enrich the process of formulating the policy. So it's good for free software, and it's good for open public policies also. Well, this was a very nice experience. In 2009, we created the culturadigital.pr platform, which was the first open social network launched by a government. I don't know if you heard about this social network craziness in Brazil. It's much before Facebook. We were crazy on Orkut on 2006. Every Brazilian was on Orkut. And so we have the sense that the whole population was already being... it was a capacity building in using those tools. They are very good on using social network features. So we thought that why not create a public social network in order to explore these possibilities of open dialogue from the Ministry of Culture to the citizenship. Especially, of course, we were talking about digital cultural issues. But what we learned is that when we opened this door to the dialogue from the government to the society, the government had many situations that were in need of this dialogue. I would show you one. Oh, my God. Okay. Thank you. No, this is, we can pass by this. And this one was, I think, the most famous experience at the digitalcultural.pr platform. It was the development of the first civil law on digital rights and principles. It was the Marco Civil da Internet. It's a kind of landmark in digital law. It's been created from scratch in a collaborative process, and it was done in the culturadigital.pr. This law has been approved in Congress lately and has become the first law to deal in a direct form with net neutrality, for example, which is a very difficult thing to regulate. And the very interesting thing is that it was created in an open and collaborative way. Also, after we did the Marco Civil, the internet consultation, we were able to do also the open consultation on the copyright law, the reform of the copyright law in Brazil. I used to say that copyright laws are a kind of a basic architecture of the digital environment. And it's very important when we think about what happens on the internet and the circulation of cultural goods to check if our copyright laws are modern enough to deal with the many new situations that happens in digital culture. And so it was very fortunate for us to have the opportunity to make this an open consultation. It's something that's very unique in the world. It doesn't happen in any other country. And I think it's a very important landmark of openness of a government to do such a thing. There were other consultations process. For example, this one is in the goals of the Cultural National Plan, which is a 10-year plan for cultural policies. It was also a process, an open process of consultation and the platform culturadigital.pr. And then this is another dimension of our work, which was the creation of the National System for Cultural Information and Indicators. It was created by a law, and the words that we would like to represent the idea, the concept of the system, is open data and citizen participation. The idea was also, with our experience of using social networks in public policy, to add social network features to the system, because as a public database on cultural information, we had the sense that it would be good not to be just, the information would be not just published by officials or public agencies, but by everybody who wanted to make a declaration about his culture, his library, and publish a reference of the cultural work that she is doing. So we had to think about a system architecture that designed to deal with reputation management, because somehow we had to check the information that were coming. And this made us think about that we needed a protocol to manage digital identity, which is a very sensible thing in the digital environment. In this system also we were proposing the data crowdsourcing model, so that we would provoke groups, regions, in order to upload their information, their cultural information in the system, so that we could make this database a rich reference of Brazilian digital culture. See, it's a collaborative cultural database, and I think that's an idea that it should be explored more in different countries. The idea is that we have a strong commitment to open protocols and standards, in a way that the information that we are gathering in this database is offered to be used by the society, in a way that using open APIs. Here is more or less the architecture of one of the most important models of the system, which is the cultural open registry. We call it HAC, and it's like hack. It was the first governmental experience of national collaborative cultural mapping. And the idea, the architecture, was to think about a cultural typology that would stand for spaces, places, professions and citizen roles, and activities, cultural activities, and performances. An important element of this project was given by our constitution, that says that auto-declaration is a feature of the cultural world. For example, I have the right to declare myself a member of a cultural group, or I have the right to declare myself a woman. That's what the Brazilian law provides today. So this is a very important element, because with this, any citizen can come to the system and declare what he, she is, and it is valid by law. Well, the identity management, as I said, the cultural ID, which is a very sophisticated idea to be put in practice. And the idea that apps and applications and services could be built from this open database through these open APIs. So, for example, the idea is that we could have in the system like a cultural program of a city that is published, uploaded by public officials, but not only that, we could have all the cultural events that different groups are promoting, and they could upload the information here. And I could, for example, develop a cell phone app that would connect with this database, and somehow with GPS features, wow, what's happening here in this place right now? And then you have in your cell phone the information that comes from this public database, public collaborative database. This is more or less the idea. Well, for this to work, the idea is of a distributed system architecture, also a blog platform. As you've seen, we put blogs in everywhere. It's not a casual thing, because I was a blogger before I came into the government. So we all think that blogs are a very important thing in the collaborative dimension of the internet. The digital identity management, governments for distributed software development, because in the moment that the government puts a platform where many applications and services will be dependent on, we have to build an agreement, like a governance model that take in consideration the interests of the developers that are working on applications and services based on this database. The emphasis on local client demand and the flexibility for data collection interfaces. For example, we built some WordPress templates that were ready for collaborative cartography, as we say here. For example, I could build a blog to make the map of the places that the kids here ride skate. And then I would promote this blog as a place that the kids will all come and say, wow, it's good to ride skate here and there. And this information would automatically come to the public system, the public collaborative system. That, again, is the way of bringing the technology to the hands of people that the way would not touch the technology. But when they touch the technology, new things happens, this what we call the generative aspect of the digital technologies. And I think that it's very important for digital culture. The cultural ID. Well, I don't think that I'll go into these details, but I want to say one thing. When you're dealing with digital identity and being a government, a state, we have to be aware that the citizens are not comfortable if the state have all the information gathered about a person, We got to remember what Snowden taught us. And when a government thinks about developing a model for digital management, it has to be aware that it has to be a collaborative, a comparted governance model, The model has to be user-centric. The user has to know what is being done of the personal data. This is very important. So, but here somehow I'm describing the technical arrangements for that. But, okay, I think that some of you may understand and take notes, and maybe we can talk about this later, but I think it's okay for now. Well, this is the bad interface that we have now in the system. It's not good, Facebook is much better. But somehow we are starting. I've got to say that we have many problems when we are doing this IT digital culture platforms, that it's difficult to count on the public IT sector. The public, the IT coordinations in public agencies, they're very slow to comprehend that control and security was very important in the last century. But right now, the technology must be open to be at the service of the whole society and not just the government. The IT sectors of the public, the IT people from the public sector have to know that right now they are working for everybody and not just for their boss in the ministry. This is like key for the development of these policies. So, but we started. Not the best one, but we started. But what we found very interesting is that although our interface of our system was not good, the fact that we opened the APIs and that the information was open for anyone to create their own interfaces, what happened was the states and cities started to build their own interface to reach this content, right? So this one was made in the state of Santa Catarina. It's dealing with the information from the same database, but it's another installation. It's based in WordPress. They were smart. And this one, and this is another one. This is from the city of São Paulo. Also, they liked the idea of having just one database for national cultural information, and that they could develop their own interface to deal with this data. Also, another idea, this is the theaters in São Paulo, where you could just click and see the information about the space. And this is a little better profile page at this SP Cultura website, integrating all the features of social networks, and this is, I think, it's a good development. And here is an example of a template that was created by I don't know who, and it's ready for somehow that is doing his event in the city. He would connect with a special hashtag of the event, and everything that is connected to the event at this NIC database would come here automatically. This is another development that shows the power of this arrangement. And here it is the idea of the login, the citizen login. It's somehow the cultural ID generated the same impulse of creating these instances of digital identity management, in this case in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, in the south of Brazil. This possibilities created many hacker meetings where the developers from the city and the state would come together in order to exchange ideas and exchange code in order to create new possibilities for the system. In this meeting, we had the people from the Cultural Maps from São Paulo, the people from Login Cidadão from the Rio Grande do Sul state. We were there talking about our architecture, the typology and the identity management in order to connect the many instances of the system. And we had a very interesting thing in Brazil, which was TIM, which is a Brazilian telecom operator, who saw this the system as an opportunity to be part of something that was being relevant for the cultural life of the country, So they are now funding all the development of the free software that empowers the system. So we had a telecom operator investing in the development of free software, which is a very new thing and very good thing to happen in this digital culture thing, digital cultural universe. Here I was talking about the IT. The problem that we have with IT public sector here is the White House gives up on making coders dress like adults. I don't know if you learned about Obama problem in establishing Medicare, the landmark policy he suffered so much to pass in the Congress, and then he suffered a lot more when he put up the system, and it was like falling all the time. It was not working well. So he had to bring someone from Google. Wow. And the guy just said, okay, I'll come and I'll fix the things, but I won't use ties in the White House. And so Obama had to permit that the guy was like to be himself, the hacker. And this was the solution that we had in Europe also. The IT sectors are being revolutionized with new persons that come with new ideas based on digital culture. This brings us to the idea of government as platform. The idea is that the state innovates and tests arrangements in order to involve and firm its actual mandate in the digital era. The idea of the partner state in like providing the infrastructure for collaboration between state and society. Also constantly searching for more effective ways to promote interaction and best serve the interests of diverse actors and its clients. And also promoting cultural changes that truly empower the citizen client to be responsible in relationship with the new actors of the digital era, like public officials, networks, providers of services and goods, etc. Well, somehow here I finished my presentation of what we've been doing in the past. Now I'll start to talk about what we're doing now in the present. Somehow everything that I talked about till now is like the basis and foundation for what we're doing ahead. We had to learn from our success, but from our failures. And right now we have two big programs. The one is Rede Labs and the other with Digital Archives. It's not a coincidence that somehow these two programs are very related with programs that you are dealing with here in Taiwan. Our Rede in Portuguese is network, right? So Rede Labs is networked labs, networked laboratories, the program of networked laboratories. The initiative is called Fostering Innovations to Improve Production, Distribution, and Consumption of Cultural Goods. The idea is, as I told you, gather, consolidate, and extend, review the lessons learned from the cultural hotspots and past initiatives, and go forward with new multipurpose, customizable, experimental laboratories, which would somehow create spaces that would promote new forms of conviviality and interaction, and also new forms of organization and production that emerge from and reflect local realities. It's very important that, as we did with the cultural hotspots, those labs would emerge from demands that are already identified locally. The goal of the program, Rede Labs, is to connect and network the initiatives and innovations evolving in separate laboratories into something larger that might truly and practically give meaning and purpose to the meme digital culture. So the program somehow is dealing with this challenge. The way that we see somehow as the best to connect, to make this connection, is to study a way of documenting creative processes, because we think that this will be the place where this creative process will occur very intensively. And the idea is that we have this process of documenting it and opening, sharing this information with the other laboratories in order that they can replicate what is happening in each point, in each lab of the program. This is the Rede Labs program. We've been implementing some experiences, and it's very nice. I won't have time to detail it now, but I think for the people that are interested in this program, we'll have the time to talk about more later. And so the digital archives and collections. Okay. The initiative is integrated program for the digitization and publishing of cultural collections. GLAM is the acronym for Galleries, Libraries, Archives, and Museums. Well, the goal is to digitize, integrate, and publish the collections of archives, libraries, and museums. Draw forth an operating model that promotes resources sharing, which is technology infrastructure, the availability of platforms and data storage, and specialized human resources for digitization, cataloging, and publishing of content. We believe that this model evolves organically toward an emerging national policy for cultural collections. The real problem that we have in Brazil is that the many institutions are doing their digitization work disconnected one from another. So what we have is many silos where you have, when you do a research, you have to go into every website or count on Google, which is, as we know, the only platform that can make this connection freely on the internet, that has the capacity of making this connection of the many silos. We think that when we think about public policy for archives, it's very important that we see that this space that's being occupied by Google is the space of the public policy, is the space that is where we would have to reflect how our initiatives would like open space for this public publishing of collections and public access. We have this Afro-Digital project in Brazil, which is a kind of a, we call it a playable demo. We are trying to make it demonstrate the potential of what we are doing. And we make this thematic cut into the Afro-Digital heritage content. I don't know if you know, but more than half of the population in Brazil have this connection with Afro-Digital culture. They are Afro-descendant people. And somehow the archives and the collections from this culture is the most, it's not very organized. We don't have museums and we don't have many archives organized on Afro-Digital culture. So we choose that would be a nice place to do our experiments. So the initial investment is of 1.7 million for selection of projects that collect, rescue, recover, maintain, and provide public access in digital media of this kind of content. The focus is on collections of scientific and cultural interest of Afro-Brazilian heritage, aiming to expand their availability and accessibility for researchers and civil society, and also maximizing opportunities for generating new knowledge from this collection is a fundamental object of this initiative. So we are working on this, and this project is bringing us many challenges, many interesting challenges. One of them is that the Afro-descendant people, they were not like 50 years ago, they are not reading or writing books. So it's a culture that is very, very much based on oral transmission of knowledge. As you can imagine, we are not the oral tradition is very difficult for you to have it in collections, digital collections, because it's open in the society. It is not recorded. So it was a challenge for us to think about a program for archives in Afro-Brazilian digital culture, because we didn't have it. And when we started doing the process, we felt that this should be, the digitization, the creation of this archive should be a social process. We saw that from this special challenge of the Afro-digital culture, but then this was a kind of a provocation for us to think that in 21st century, the digitization of cultural goods could be a social process for everybody, you know. That it's an opportunity that we have as long as we are all operating these interfaces and these applications and these social services. So this concept emphasizes the central role that web users in the various levels of technical expertise come to play in the process of classifying, cataloging, which is one thing that nowadays is a very specialized thing, contextualizing, bringing information of context about these archives that are not all in the archives, as you may know, and promoting visibility of digital collections available on the internet. I think that you are all have some experience in Facebook, and I know in Brazil we see lots of cultural digital objects circulating into Facebook. And when they circulate in Facebook, they receive comments, and they receive tags, and they receive many new links, which somehow they are closed in the Facebook environment. Somehow, if you want to make a research on that specific cultural digital good, we won't have access to that. It won't be integrated to the whole other information that we have on that collection. So, in the first 1 century, the production of contextual information about the content circulating in the digital environment takes place in network flows and conversations. For such a process to occur in a public and an organized way, standards, methodologies, and platforms should incorporate this capability in their architecture. If we don't do that as a public policy, we will forever have to count on Google. Think about that. So we have this, what we call the platform challenge. It seems to me that the true beauty of what we have been doing does not lie in the details of what we have developed, but in the way that each solution seems to provoke a new set of challenges that drive us towards an expansion of our understanding of digital culture and where it needs to go next. It's not a ready thing. We keep learning. Let me offer 2 examples. As we face the task of collecting, integrating, and making accessible content of the Afro-Brazilian heritage theme, we discovered that much content is locked into specialized networks understood only by archival specialists, or much is buried deep in the silos of the internet behemoths. How do we make this content generally accessible and also operable across the platforms of different archival contexts, specialized protocols, and different systems of storage? This is a good question. Second, a single program of promoting photographs of the Brazilian indigenous cultural heritage provoked content censorship from one of the giants. By that, we realized that we must face the reality that both global search and social network architecture are dominated by an almost complete monopoly. How do we guarantee useful access for all with this situation? Now, here is a thing that happened in Brazil like a month ago. As I told you, Facebook censored a photograph that was published on the official page of the Ministry of Culture in Facebook. Here we have our minister, Juca Ferreira, doing a press conference announcing that he would sue Facebook for the censorship of that photograph, which is a photograph of an indigenous woman, bare-chested, that from 1910, which for us in Brazil is, we are proud of this picture, and to show this picture to the world, and Facebook censored it. Here's an article where our minister impacted with this situation. He said that this situation reinforced his conviction that we need to rethink our understanding of digital culture and reveal the role of the Ministry of Culture in the field. Well, this is the network challenge. These difficult moments define our most recent challenge, which is to search and research and innovate for a public platform and set of protocols that further expand general accessibility and usability across a full range of users and clients. We have begun this research in Brazil. It's giving very interesting results. I couldn't enter into details right now, but again, I'll be here for some days, and everybody who is interested in this project, we can talk more about this. And what I can say to finish my words is, please stay tuned. Thank you.
谢谢 Jose Murilo 精彩的演讲。